What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson, reacting to an utter embarrassment from the New York Giants, once again today losing 30-7 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm not shocked at all by the fact that the Giants lost this game, and I'm not even shocked that they lost it by a lot. There's really nothing shocking about this, but it's still disappointing. And listen, I didn't have my expectations high. I wasn't getting my hopes up for a Tommy DeVito masterclass and a New York Giants win, or even for them to be competitive, but I'm still disappointed for this reason. The Giants look like they have completely given up. And why does that disappoint me? It doesn't disappoint me because I know that it means we're probably barreling towards a top draft pick, and that's a great thing. However, it disappoints me the fact that here we are in year 3 of the Brian Daboll experience, and the locker room is lost from its head coach once again. And this is how we end up with overturn at GM and coaching positions every single year. The New York Giants keep cycling through pretty much every 2 to 3 seasons with the new regimes, and it's because of the locker room giving up on the head coach. And that's what it felt like happened to me today in this matchup between the Giants and the Buccaneers. I feel like from the first quarter, we saw players making business decisions and just basically giving up and not trying anymore. From the first quarter all the way through the fourth quarter. I felt bad for Tommy DeVito. He was harassed throughout this game, got beat up. Sure, he held onto the ball too long sometimes. It wasn't all everybody else's fault. He deserves some blame for the way that he played rather poorly. But overall, I saw a lack of effort from Neighbors, from Banks, from players all over the field. I just thought that nobody gave a shit. And this is the part that really is disappointing. I don't really give a shit either. I think this team is just cooked. It's over. Like, I don't care to watch these games. It's very disappointing that we are here. It's not even Thanksgiving yet, Alex, and we know the result of this season, and we know that there's nothing really worthwhile about this team to watch and be invested in every single week. It's very disheartening that we are here this late into the season, or this early into the season, really feeling this way about this team, but here we are, another terrible 2024 season for the New York Giants underway, and I don't really know what else to say other than this is just sad to watch, Alex. How are you feeling today after watching the Giants get beat up by the Buccaneers at home?
Whoa. So I expected bad. I expected us to lose. We are by far the worst team in football. By far. The Buccaneers were on a 4-game losing streak, and they just whipped our asses at MetLife again. Listen, like you said, I expected them to give up. Like, that team, whatever we just watched, that excuse of a football team, that was what I call giving up on your coaching staff, giving up on your players, giving up on yourselves. None of those guys put in a lick of effort today. The routes were stale. The run defense was awful. The pass coverage was terrible. There was zero pass rush. I watched them force a fumble on the goal line, and freaking Brian Burns standing there kicking the ball around, doesn't even realize it's at his feet. No urgency, no awareness. This is the type of football that we're getting from the Giants right now. And listen, as I said, last week, the best case scenario is the Giants lose out. But I think there's a difference between losing because you're just not a good team. There's a difference between waving the white flag and obviously kind of doing what the Giants did today, or just having effort and losing because you just were the worst team in the equation. I think right now, if you're the Giants and you're John Mara and a reporter saw him walk into the locker room and all he said was Happy Thanksgiving and walked away, this feels really similar to what we've faced in the past, Anthony. This feels like a really similar feeling to when Joe Judge basically coached himself out of a job. Pat Shurmur coached himself out of a job. I mean, listen, yesterday I thought Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll might be safe. Today, I don't think there's coming back from stuff like this. Like, because there's 6 games left, and the Cowboys just beat a good Commanders team. Like, the Giants are gonna lose out the rest of the way, and they're gonna look like this the rest of the way. They're gonna look like this. And Anthony, man, the players, if you're a player in that locker room, let's think about it from like a human perspective. How much faith do you have in Brian Daboll or Joe Schoen from a player's perspective? If you've signed a big deal, if you are a guy on that team, a young player on that team, that you have faith that Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen can get you in a place where you can succeed after this type of season, this type of performance, today's example. I mean, to me, I'm going to be quite honest with you, I don't think there's coming back from this. I don't think you can fight your way. I know that the Giants are tanking, or at least it seems that way. I mean, it should be that way unless they're actually that horrible, which is also possible. But this type of effort, players giving up on you, the locker room's obviously collapsed. These is those games that really, like, you got to fight, man. The Carolina Panthers even fought today against a really good Chiefs team. The Titans are about to beat the freaking Texans. I mean, or at least we hope they do. At the moment, Anthony, the Giants have completely lost the respect of their players. The coaching staff has lost the respect. There is no coming back from this. Shane Bowen has to go. I mean, that defense is horrible. Brian Daboll, I mean, no one's trying. Neighbors is barely running routes. Darius Slayton was a freaking ghost. I didn't even see him until like half through the game. I didn't even know he was out there, right? Like, the offensive line is a disaster. The roster construction is a disaster. I think they deserve to be fired at this point. I can't sit here and act like I think there's any reason to keep them. Like, giving them another chance to rebuild next year and get a quarterback and choose the guy they want with all that's happened and the players turning against them right now, like the not giving the effort. Obviously, they were really unhappy about Daniel Jones, how they treated that situation, and it had to be done. But they ran the risk, they played the game, and this is the result. This is the consequence. And like, I agree with the decision they had to do it. I thought they should have done it weeks ago. Like, started to phase him out slowly. Instead, they just cut the cord and cold turkey overnight, and they pissed the whole locker room off in the process. You know, like, they did it horribly. You know what I mean? They just did everything horribly. Everything they've done has been just horrible across the board. I don't really know what to say anymore. Like, I have zero faith in this management. I have zero faith in Brian Daboll, and I have zero faith in Joe Schoen. And at this point, we've seen enough losing football to say, I don't know if there's coming back from what we just saw in this game. And the rest of the season is going to look like this. I don't think the players are going to respect these coaches. I think they need to change the scenery. Like, I think they need to change up the coaching staff at this point, because like, I just don't see how you can rebound from this and have any respect from your locker room. And Jordan Rodden said it best. I'll leave you with this, Anthony, to respond to. There's not a lot of players in that locker room that respect Joe Schoen. That's what he said. That's what Jordan Rodden said. If that's true, you have a lot of big problems to face if you're John Mara.
I mean, who would respect him after he cut all of the leaders from this roster? I mean, if you're thinking back to last season, who were the biggest leaders in this locker room, Alex? Saquon Barkley and Xavier McKinney. He let them walk for nothing, didn't make competitive offers, basically treated them like they didn't matter to this team or to this locker room, let them go. That definitely ruffled feathers in the locker room. And then this Daniel Jones debacle, I mean, we agree that he should have been cut and he should have been moved on from long ago. But even still, it's had a bad effect on the locker room. Every move that Joe Schoen has made has been a decision for finances and business ops, and it's never been about building a culture and a locker room for the New York Giants, and that's come back to bite him because they don't have a real culture and they don't have a united locker room because of many of the decisions that he's made or the decisions that he hasn't made. So it's really, like you said, it's disheartening to see all of the players that give up on the locker room, to see, on the coaching staff rather, to see the players not like the general manager and all of that, but it's the cold reality. And when you look at the way that this general manager has maneuvered about and crafted this team over the last 3 seasons, it does all make sense. But Alex, quick break. I'll just say this. Listen, I don't enjoy watching the Giants play anymore, but I do enjoy watching the Los Angeles Chargers play, and I'm locked in for Monday Night Football tomorrow night. So, for our message from BetUS, today's sponsor of this episode, I'm taking a look at their lines, and minus 125, Alex, for the Chargers to go over 23.5 points. They've cleared that line in 4 straight weeks. The Chargers offense is hot and rolling. Justin Herbert is looking like an MVP candidate right now. And the Ravens, yeah, they're spectacular. They have a great defense, but they have a great run defense, which might cause the Chargers to have to throw the ball a little bit more. So I like their ability to put up points behind Justin Herbert's strong arm. And I think that when you're looking at the Ravens, again, great defense, but over the last few weeks, they have had some weird losses to inferior teams. And I actually think the Chargers are a better team, arguably, than the Baltimore Ravens. You could make that argument based on who they've won and lost to, respectively. So I like over 23.5 points from the Los Angeles Chargers at home in SoFi Stadium, a beautiful stadium that is. Locking that in, putting $10 down on that at minus 125. Guys, make sure you go check out BetUS and use code YouTube150 for a 150% deposit match on whatever you decide to throw in, up to $2,000 for BetUS, the sportsbook with the fastest payouts in the industry. But back to our miserable New York Giants, back to talking about why we've been depressed for so long. And Alex, there's one thing that I thought was really interesting about this game. There was one moment, rather, that I thought was really interesting. Baker Mayfield scores a rushing touchdown and gives the Buccaneers a 23-point lead at the end of the first half. Walks into the end zone, starts throwing up the Tommy DeVito gestures and mocking all of MetLife Stadium, throwing them around, looking around in the stands, and actively trying to disrespect and embarrass New York Giants fans, players, everyone there. And I just thought, man, we've fallen so far that players feel so comfortable to just mock us, taunt us, disrespect us, embarrass us for their own enjoyment and fun, and we can't do a jack fucking thing about it. The Giants just roll over and die. Baker Mayfield is just making fun of this organization, and I give a shit, but do the players? Doesn't seem like it. It seems like they just don't care, and they don't really have any way of showing that they care because they are an inferior football team that can't handle Baker Mayfield and his passing attack. I thought that was just so embarrassing, Alex. I don't know how you felt about it. I know that you posted on social media that you thought it was funny, and a lot of Giants fans do, and it was pretty funny that he was mocking the Giants in that way, but at the end of the day, it's also just really sad. It's embarrassing that the Giants are the butt of all jokes. Like, they are literally the punchline in every single joke for the NFL teams across the league. It's pathetic and sad, and man, it just shows how far we've fallen.
It does, and why do I think it's funny? Because somebody has to make an example of these guys so that they wake the fuck up. Okay? That's the truth. Somebody has to go and embarrass these guys enough to show their problems and to stop, like, just remove all of the blinders and filters. Daniel Jones is not winning this game. People on it wasn't down to look what happened. The Giants sucked with Daniel Jones. They also the fucking Panthers. God. You know what I mean? They also the Panthers. Now we're seeing what happens when a whole team gives up. Now we're seeing what happens when they've lost the locker. You want to talk about losing the locker room? The leaders are done, man. Dexter Lawrence, you heard what he was saying this week. He is done. Brian Burns, done. Kayvon Thibodeau, business decisions is what he said. That was verbatim, business decisions. Okay? This team is cooked. Neighbors, body language, done. Receivers, done. Banks, done. Effort's gone. There's no coming back from this. If you're Brian Daboll or Joe Schoen, there's no coming back from this. I have never seen a head coach or general manager go through something like the only other team I can compare this to is the Jaguars right now with that type of performance. You know what I mean? And the Jaguars are about to fire Doug Peterson and gut their whole front office. Okay, that's what we're about to see. The Jets are going to do the same exact thing. You know what I mean? And the Jets have a hell of a lot more talent than we do, to be quite honest. You know, this is a situation where if you're the Giants, there's no coming back from this. Not only are the players never going to trust his coaches again, but your general manager has no respect in the locker room. Your general manager who signed a bunch of free agent contracts, and if they're buddies, if Brian Burns' buddy is going to come here and is coming to test out the Giants, see if he's a good fit, and Joe Schoen's sitting there talking at the table, Brian Burns is going to say, do not come here, bro. Do not come here. It is a hostile environment. I'm getting paid, but we are a losing team. You know, everything Joe Schoen has done has screamed loser. Loser franchise, loser organization. And people forget, this is the 100th season of the Giants franchise. John Mara must be out of his mind right now. Out of his mind. You want to talk about reactionary situations? This is one of them. He is going to react to this. He may not fire them now, but he's not going to forget this moment, man. If I promise you, John Mara's going up to Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen right now tomorrow. Maybe not right now, but tomorrow morning. He's saying, if I see this type of effort again, you guys are both gone. That's what else can you say? I get they're tanking. But he's lost the respect of everyone in that office. There's no coming back from that once you lose your respect, man, as a GM or head coach.
He's also lost the respect from the fans, and I always make this point about John Mara. John Mara, first and foremost, is a fan of the New York Giants. He inherited this team from his father. He grew up as a fan of the New York Giants. He has a true love for this team and for the fans that he shares this love for the team with. So when he sees the fans completely turn on a coaching staff, which is what happened with Joe Judge, which is what happened with Pat Shurmur. That's why those guys got fired, which is what happened with Ben McAdoo. If you think about it, Alex, McAdoo, he had his job safe. John Mara said it was safe, but then he did the Eli Manning benching and the fan base turned on him and he got fired. Pat Shurmur was looking like he had a safe job. He's almost through 2 seasons, but then fans got into an uproar over certain decisions that he made and they thought that he was limiting Daniel Jones' ability to develop. The fans got loud. He got fired. Joe Judge, again, reinvigorated the passion in this fan base for a short time, but then into that second season, once he made that dumb decision to do the quarterback sneak bullshit, The fans had an uproar, and he got fired despite a promise from the owner that he wouldn't be fired mid-season. So it's always the fans, because John Mara himself is just at the end of the day a fan with a lot of responsibility to run the team. So right now, you're seeing fans give up on Brian Daboll, Alex, and that's the scariest thing for Daboll. Daboll might be afraid that I'm going to lose the locker room and that's going to cause me to lose my job, and that's a valid fear, but Brian Daboll needs to make sure that he doesn't lose the fans' support, and right now he's losing it, and once he loses that, he loses his job. That's been the precedent set for the last 3 head coaches that the New York Giants have fired. Once the fans turn on you, you're done. If the fans don't like you, we don't like you. That's John Mara's true mentality, and I think that's important for people to realize. So if you want Daboll to stay, you better start supporting him. You better start being loud and supporting and arguing and defending him. But unfortunately, it's very hard to defend Brian Daboll right now because he has done a very poor job coaching this team. And I listen, Tommy DeVito didn't play good football today. I also don't think the coaching staff did him any favors with the offensive play calling that Daboll was putting out there. I thought it was atrocious from start to finish, Alex. I mean, how does Malik Neighbors go through the entire first half of football without a target or a reception? I get it. A lot of that does fall on the quarterback, but a lot of that falls on the playmaker or the play caller as well. The play caller has the ability to run a jet sweep and make sure that the ball ends up in Malik Neighbors' hand on the first drive of the game. He chose not to. He could absolutely run an RPO where Malik Neighbors is running a bubble screen and gets the ball instantly as soon as the ball is snapped. He chooses not to call those plays for his playmaker. So what do we see, Alex? We see Neighbors off on the sideline, no helmet on, sitting alone, drinking Gatorade off to the side and not hanging out with his teammates. He's frustrated. He's pissed off. He's not getting the ball, and I get it. I absolutely know exactly what he's feeling. You hate to just be phased out of a game plan when you, among all of the people, deserve the ball more than anybody. It doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. So I get it. Tommy DeVito didn't play well, but Brian Daboll also did a disservice to him, to Neighbors, and to this entire offense with a terribly constructed game plan once again. So again, I get it. You know, like, there's always reason to be frustrated with Daboll, but I mean, I just don't know if I can be confident in a coach that makes play calling decisions like this. This is what he was brought here for, was to fix this offense, fix the red zone offense, be this offensive guru and mastermind, and we don't see that any single week. The Giants have 7 turnovers in the red zone this year. Sure, many of those were Daniel Jones's own fault, but also it just does highlight how poor the Giants' red zone offense has been. You are an offensive coach calling plays and also serving as the head coach. Your goddamn team better be able to score in the red zone. The New York Giants are like allergic to scoring in the red zone. All of it just highlights how poor of a job Brian Daboll has done in his 3rd season. And one last point that I got to make, though, Alex, on Daniel Jones, you kind of alluded to this. There's a lot of Giants fans who are kind of taking a victory lap over this game and being like, oh, you know, look, this is the result. When you don't have Daniel Jones out there, we lose even harder. Daniel Jones being on the field would not have changed the outcome of this game. I'm going to make that abundantly clear. If you disagree with me, I don't need to hear it because I've already got my mind made up. Don't try to argue with me. Daniel Jones is a quarterback that didn't throw a touchdown pass in MetLife Stadium in 2 years, all right? Him being on the field wasn't going to change a damn thing. The Giants were getting blown out no matter what. This team had given up. This team was outmatched, out-talented, and out-coached in every facet of the game from start to finish, first quarter to fourth quarter. Doesn't matter if the Giants had Tommy DeVito, Drew Lock, or Daniel Jones, or freaking Tyrod Taylor under center even. They were going to lose this game. They are a bad, bad football team. One of the worst in the last 5 years put onto a field. And that's not only an indictment on the head coach, but it's also an indictment on the general manager. So miss me with it. Don't say, oh, look at what happens when you cut Jones, this team. It's not better off without him. It is better off without him because we get to move into 2025 and find a new future for this team. That's important. That's why they made the move. Plus, they made the move because he asked them to release him. So it all makes sense to me. But Daniel Jones being on that field wouldn't have changed a damn thing. He was 0-5 at home prior to him being released. The Giants have not won a home game this year. This is the first home game that they've played without him. So Jones being out there, Jones not being out there wouldn't have made a difference. This is just the worst NFL team in the league. This is it. This is as bad as it gets.
This is as bad as it gets. And this type of defeat, this type of embarrassment, don't see many coaches survive this type of stuff, man. I can't recall seeing a coach or a GM survive this type of embarrassment. Like, this is from a roster construction standpoint, to a discipline standpoint, to a respect and a pride standpoint. You are at home. People are in your stadium to watch you spending good money, and you don't even put up a fight against a team on a 4-game lose streak. You can't rebound from that. The Giants have not won a game at MetLife this season. They have scored 2 passing touchdowns this season at MetLife. We are talking about catastrophic levels of failure. There is no coming back from this. This is the bottom. This is officially the bottom, which we've reached over and over. And yes, listen, the Giants have been going through this cycle of every 3 years going, over GMs and over head coaches. But it's the same thing as hitting on a quarterback. You have to hit on the right coach. You got to hit on the right regimen, like a regime. Like, this regime is not the answer. It is quite obvious to me. The Giants have to shake things up. And you want to know the worst part about this, Anthony? You fired Brian Daboll, you got to fire Joe Schoen. They come as a package deal, and I genuinely believe that. I know you may not agree with me on that one, but I do not think you can fire one and not fire the other. Those guys came together. They got to go together. They both freaking suck, to be honest. So it's not like you have to argue that hard to figure out, who's at fault here. Joe Schoen didn't really give Brian Daboll the most talent to work with, and Brian Daboll's done nothing with the talent he has. So it's like, everyone's at fault here. Everyone's, gets to get thrown under the bus. But I'll tell you what, right now, really interesting turn of events happening. The Cowboys just keep returning kicks for touchdowns against the Commanders. They were up. What happened? The Commies actually just threw a 86-yard touchdown pass to Terry McLaurin, and you want to know what happens? They missed the extra point to tie the game up with 21 seconds left. And then what happens? Onside kick is returned for a touchdown by Dallas. Guys, Dallas is not a horrible team. We are going to get scraped. Don't worry, if you're on the tank bus, we're going to get scraped by Dallas on Thanksgiving. Don't even worry about it. This Giants team is not winning another game this season. They are going to lose out. All we have to hope is that the Jaguars can, by the graces of God, sneak out a win against somebody. But worst case scenario, we're going to be picking number 2 overall. So it's Cam Ward or it's Shedeur Sanders season. And honestly, it doesn't matter how much due diligence and work Joe Schoen and that front office does into those 2 players. Anthony, they're going to be picking one of those 2 guys, right? At this point, it doesn't matter that Joe Schoen's put all this work, like looking into them. You bring in a new regimen, they pick the quarterback, whichever one they prefer, and you move forward. Like, that's the only way. This is how you actually do a rebuild, by the way, Anthony. The Giants have always positioned themselves to get a new head coach, get a new GM, when they weren't in a position to take a quarterback. Now, you can bring in a whole new regimen, and they will have the ability to take the quarterback they want and start from the ground floor with a lot of good talent on this roster, just not enough effort and not enough depth. You can get the quarterback, rebuild the depth, and kind of turn things over. Really start a rebuild with the quarterback, with that pick. This may be the perfect time to turn things over, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, and that's why I always say, or I've been saying for the last several weeks, Alex, the Giants, if they're going to fire one, have to fire both. You can't fire Joe Schoen and allow him to pick a new head coach and plug that guy in. You can't fire Joe Schoen and keep Brian Daboll and expect a new GM to force a quarterback upon the head coach once again. Like, if you're going to fire one of them, you got to fire both of them is how I feel about it. Just full reboot, clean the slate, and like you said, do a proper rebuild this time. Like, don't force the quarterback onto a new regime like you just did with Daniel Jones. The Giants didn't really have a choice, had to stick with Daniel Jones in the middle of his rookie contract, going into a contract year when they hired Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll, and that burned them pretty badly. They probably should have just waited it out another year before going with a clean slate, but here we are once again, probably looking at a clean slate with the opportunity to get a quarterback. I am questioning whether or not I want to see this regime take a quarterback and try and make it work. It might just be for the best to bring in a new GM to find that quarterback, better talent evaluator, and bring in a new head coach who can actually develop him and keep the locker room together. So it's really tough to envision what this offseason is going to look like, Alex. I mean, one thing that I know for sure, there's going to be a lot of changes. Even if the Giants do keep Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll, this roster is going to get overhauled, absolutely overhauled. The offensive line, while it looked better in the beginning of the season, ever since Andrew Thomas went down, I think we're starting to see the true colors of everybody on this line. Evan Neal sucked again today. John Michael Schmitz has been terrible since he's been drafted. The guard tandem of John Runyon Jr. and Greg Van Roten is average at best. It's just overall a mess on the offensive line. The receiving core is led by Malik Neighbors, a very talented player who doesn't get the ball enough. It's an indictment on the head coach and play caller, but also he's the only receiver worth a damn. I mean, Wan'Dale Robinson could pick up 8 yards a pop, but he doesn't make plays downfield. Darius Slayton is a goddamn ghost who doesn't want to be here anymore, and Jalen Hyatt is a ghost who wants to play but just can't get the ball for the life of himself. And then you look at the tight end room, and you're relying on a 6'6" rookie with the highest drop rate among all tight ends in the NFL to be your starter. Overall, this roster is awful. General Manager Joe Schoen, whatever you want to say about this 2024 rookie draft class and how much value he found in it, I don't even care. He's built the worst roster in the NFL. He has let talented players walk out of the door for nothing. And he's probably going to do it again this offseason, Alex, because they didn't want to trade Darius Slayton. Well, I can guarantee you Darius Slayton doesn't want to play here in 2025, especially after they cut Daniel Jones. So another mistake that they made. It's been mistake after mistake, and I'll leave it on this, Alex, before we wrap this thing. This is the point that I'm going to make. Out of all of the moves that general managers in professional sports in America have made over the last 5 years, the Daniel Jones contract is probably the most egregious error and mistake. And we are expecting Joe Schoen to keep his job despite making the biggest contract mistake out of any general manager in sports. I highly doubt it. I don't think it gets much worse than this. You could argue maybe the Deshaun Watson deal is worse than this. Maybe Daniel Jones is worse than this too. Like, this is among the number 1 to top 3 worst moves that a general manager, biggest mistakes that a general manager has made in the last 5 years. And we expect the general manager to survive that mistake. I'm not so sure about that. I definitely think that it's an indictment on him. Whether John Mayer wanted the extension to be done or not, this is a conversation that he's going to have with his decision makers in the offseason. Decide, is that contract that we signed Daniel Jones to enough to cause us to fire Joe Schoen? And this bad roster that he built, is that enough to motivate us to move on and find a new regime? It just very well might be. So, Alex, I've said my piece. Disappointed once again. Tired of watching the Giants lose. Tired of just watching them play, to be completely honest. I'm really not looking forward to the fact that they're going to be on the television on Thanksgiving in a few days. I mean, short week. Tommy DeVito just got beat up, and now he has to go run back out there in Dallas on Thanksgiving. Absolutely sucks. I just can't, for the life of me, understand why the NFL decided to put the Giants on Thanksgiving Day. It was a terrible matchup by the schedule makers, but Alex, if you have any closing thoughts before we wrap up this episode reacting to another embarrassment from the Giants.
I mean, if the schedulers were smart, they just wouldn't let the Giants play at all. They would just, every week would be a bye week. It would be the greatest thing ever. We would be able to go into Monday feeling nice, happy, refreshed, great Sundays. But now I can't wait for this thing to be over. I mean, Thursday, I'm not watching, man. 4:30 Thanksgiving, right when dinner's going to be going on? Hell no. I'm not letting them ruin my freaking Thanksgiving. One of my favorite holidays. I love Thanksgiving food. No shot am I letting them ruin my freaking day. No way. Because they're going to ruin it. They are going to ruin it. Dallas is going to trample on us with Cooper Rush at quarterback. It's going to happen. But listen, I'll end it with this. And I'm sure we'll talk about it a lot more as the week progresses here. But at this point, right now, zero faith. I have zero faith in Brian Daboll, and I have zero faith in Joe Schoen. He said, Brian Daboll after the game says, oh, it's not enough. They beat us in every respect. Malik Neighbors saying it's not the quarterback. It's not the quarterback. So who is it? Is it the offensive line? Is it the coaching staff? Is it the play calling? He's not blaming the quarterback, so he's blaming everybody else. That locker room sounds like they've turned on him. They sound like they've turned on Brian Daboll, man. They're not going to say it publicly because, they're trying to save face and not be like labeled as a distractor or whatever, and then protecting themselves. And I can understand that. But that locker room has turned on Brian Daboll and the coaching staff. That locker room does not respect Shane Bowen. That locker room does not respect those coaches. It is over. You cannot go into next season with guys who do not respect you and expect to win. You can't do it. It can't happen. You just can't do it. It's not sustainable. The second they start to feel that sense of losing again, a rookie quarterback, they're losing football games because he's trying to get used to the NFL. They're going to start to look at the coaches again. And they're going to start to blame the coaches. This is what's going to happen. We're going to see it all happen again. Anthony, we've been spot on what's been materializing here over the last couple weeks, if not this season in general. What is going to happen is that they're going to lose games next season. It's not going to be pretty. They have a rookie quarterback, and they are going to start to turn on the coaches quicker because it's going to be the same old Giants. That's what's going to happen. If you want to wait for that to happen, good for you. Enjoy it. I think that it's time to, cut bait, let a new regime take their quarterback and build and start from scratch and at least be able to start off without having this type of season hanging over your head. Because you can't move forward after a season like this. You have to hit reset. You have to give your players a sense of, okay, at least there's something new. At least we can restart. At least we have some hope and some inspiration here. Just drafting a quarterback isn't going to do that. It may do it for the fans, but from a player's perspective, I don't know if it's enough. You know what I mean? Tommy DeVito just got his ass whooped today. A rookie quarterback in this situation is not going to be doing any better. You know what I mean? I think they might have to hit reset on this. I'm getting to that stage, and I understand. I'm happy we lost, but it's the way we lost that was a little bit more egregious than I thought it would be, and I think that's kind of what opened my eyes to the situation that's unfolding right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame you for feeling this way. Listen, it's tough to feel confident in anything about this team, and to feel like they have any sort of direction right now would be surprising, because I don't feel like they do. The only direction that I feel from this team is a big arrow pointing downward. I think they are just crumbling and sinking down into the abyss. It's really, again, just sad to watch. Disappointing day. Feels like the death of a regime, to be completely honest. Now, I don't think any firings happen today, tomorrow, Tuesday, Wednesday. Thanksgiving is on Thursday. It's a short turnaround. However, Alex, you've got that Thursday Thanksgiving game, and then you have a long break until the next one. Like the Giants deciding to make a change during the bye week at quarterback, during this extended break following Thanksgiving, they could absolutely decide to make a change in the coaching or front office departments. Totally possible that they use this extended break to get a new interim head coach in there if they want to go that route, if they get beat up on Thursday afternoon by the Cowboys, which is very likely to happen. Now, again, John Mara, and I read reports this morning, Alex, that he is adamant he's going to stick by them and he's not going to make any changes at the end of the season. I'm not necessarily calling for any jobs to be taken, but yes, that was before this. And again, it's before Thursday. I think an embarrassment on Thursday on Thanksgiving. And I've been saying that for weeks. Like we saw weeks ago, the report said that John Mara is sticking with them. He anticipates that he'll be patient and he doesn't anticipate any firings at the end of the season. I said, I've heard him say the exact same shit before.
Twice before.
I've heard it many times.
Very similar.
I never took that as a true vote of confidence, because even if that's how he felt, so much can transpire over 2 months of time for a head coaching staff and a front office. So much can change, and right now we are seeing those changes happen. We are seeing this team get embarrassed on a week-to-week basis, and again, like I said earlier, the key thing is we are seeing the fan base turn on this regime, and once that happens, that usually means the regime is done. So it's going to be an interesting next few weeks. Again, we'll see if the Giants can save jobs on Thursday or if they'll take that long break following Thanksgiving to make a major change. And of course, we'll be updating you on all of that right here on Fireside Giants. So make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel if you're new, ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below. Follow us on social media at Fireside Giants, and make sure you go check out BetUS, the sportsbook with the fastest payouts in the industry. We'll catch you all on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants, I guess.
Perfect.